Hey, what's up, everybody? Well, today was Veterans Day. Now it's just plain old 11/12. Can't be making videos too often, but I wore my patriotic bracelet and my new anchor blouse. I just love those anchors. Basically, um, Veterans Day reminds me of the fact that my paternal grandfather, though not related to my dad, he was a stepdad, is a World War II veteran. And, um, that little buckle that I got from Timu? Well, I finally got around to actually installing it onto the box that protects his flag. He died, let's see, oh my gosh. Is it going to be 28 years ago? Oh my gosh. So 28 years ago, February, he died. Oh, you can't imagine how depressing that is. Because in 28 years, you always have exactly 7 leap days. And as a result, the pattern cycles, the calendar cycles again, basically. Unless you have a year like 1900 that is not a leap year, you have a 28-year cycle. So that this year is identical to my 6th grade year. And next year will be identical to my unforgettable 7th grade year. So, what I want to talk about, of course, that little box, which my dad was never going to fix it. The magnet stopped working. And as far as my dad was concerned, he just couldn't give a crap less, just like everything else. If doing nothing is an option, both him and my sister will do just that. Nothing. Okay? Now what I want to talk about today, basically I finally washed and put away my Halloween tablecloth. And the only thing I like better than Halloween is when we get to put it to bed. Because as I've stated before, I like November better than October and December better than November. And the only thing I don't like is when it's unseasonably warm. I hate it when you have unexpectedly warm weather in those months. Another thing I want to talk about is this little doll, which I did her hair. I washed her dress in this delicate wash bag, and I did her hair, and she smells like fabric softener because it's so tangled up. I put a lot in her hair. And she's one of those little strawberry shortcakes from around 2006, I want to say. Very depressing time in my life. And the other thing I want to talk about is my elf collection from Walmart. Really shouldn't be doing this because I already have too many elves. But when I saw these female elves, I couldn't resist buying some. And one disappointing thing is they're all supposed to have a belt like that. And of course I had to have the Santa so that we could have 2 girls and a Santa. Well, I found out that someone had pulled the bell off of this one. And so I used some bells that I already had and made a loop. So she'll be a little bit different. And then, I'm sure my dad won't be pleased, but I went back tonight and got 2 boy ones. Only one of them is black or Indian or Hispanic or something. And the other one is white, and they have bells intact. So, I have another elf collection in addition to my elf mates from last year. So, there's Santa. The only thing that bothers me is how red hair is just not one of the choices. I don't know why. People just don't really like red hair. They think of it as a weird color, not a natural color. So, basically, what I want to talk about in this video, um, I want to just expand upon what I was saying in my last video about how, I feel like my little sister, I just got to thinking, and I couldn't think of the word parenthesis. Um, so I put it on the screen. But I feel like my little sister, in many ways, would just deliberately sabotage herself. I can't even describe, just how many times she would make things look accidental, not just the pooping in her panties, but other things. I feel like she deliberately sabotaged the perfection of certain things that I remember. And it just made me so mad, because it's like deliberately getting things wrong, unlike me with my laughable precision with dates, dates that don't even matter, um dates that I have no reason to remember but can't possibly forget. My little sister would like deliberately dumb herself down and put wrong information and pretend not to remember things, like how old she was when things happened. In my mind, it's unforgettable and it's impossible. It's impossible for me not to know exactly how old I was when something happened past about the age of 6. Because, for one thing, I started remembering. Another thing is that I have a summer birthday, June 19th. And that means that if I remember the grade level that I was in, I definitely know how old I was, because you subtract, or no, you add 6 to whatever grade I was in, or you subtract 6 from my age to get the grade. And so, or no, wait a minute. Yeah, like if something happened when I was in first grade, then I was 7. If something happened when I was in 5th grade, I was 11, and so on. So I know, because there's just no doubt in my mind. And the only way that it's borderline is if it happened during the summer, and then I still remember, what grade I was going into, or how far into the summer we were. You know what I'm saying? Because not a whole lot happened leading up to my birthday. And then by the time I had my birthday, it was less than 2 months before the next school year began. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious to me, how old I was when things happened. But, so many times it's like my little sister would just, like, play dumb or, like, deliberately, like, talk, use incorrect grammar, and try to mimic, other people's accents to sound more like them. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's like she never wanted to appear even as smart as she was, let alone smarter. And, and she would always, I hated this the most about her, is that her face would light up. She'd come home from school and we'd eat supper and all that. And when she talked about boys, it didn't matter what boy it was, her face would light up as she would talk about them and say their names most of the time. It's like she had a fondness for most boys in her class, her age. And it didn't, like I said, it didn't matter what kind of a boy they were. She just had nothing but kind thoughts and words to say about them. Never like, ew, boys, they're so nasty. They like to fart and joke about it. And, she would either laugh about the things they said and did, or I don't know, it was almost like she thought they were automatically as smart as her, if not smarter, just because they were boys. And, she didn't see any reason to be better than them in any way, and that was really disturbing. And right now, I want to, describe what I was talking about in more detail with this crappy Magnadoodle. And that's another thing, we had so many of these, so much better ones. But I was looking frantically for this drawing I did when she was about 10 of, my desk versus hers at that age. And I couldn't find it on any of the, the discs, the flash drives. So I'll have to recreate it to the best of my ability, okay? So, with a ruler, let's see, I want to make it unrealistically big. This doesn't do it justice. Okay, so that's the tabletop. So let's say you have a student desk, okay? In elementary school, we had these, we had these desks, and they would have a wooden tabletop and like a metal bottom. And so you had enough space in that desk that you would have room for, let's say that's like a 3-ring binder or a trapper keeper or something. And so there's your papers and your zipper pouch and all that. And you might have a few pencils in front to write with. And on this side, over here, would be the textbook side with me. So let's pretend that that's like a big fat science book and maybe kind of a medium-sized math book. And let's just say on top of it, you had some kind of a history book that may have been thicker, but it was smaller in surface area. And so there were my 3 books. And there might be some kind of a pencil pouch of sorts that was lightweight and wouldn't damage my binder. And inside of said pencil pouch, I would have my matte pencils in rainbow order, like they were brand new at all times. And so that was my desk in like K through 5. So not kindergarten, we probably didn't have it that early, but let's just say maybe 3 to 5, 3rd grade to 5th grade or something like that. That would be my desk. And I'm gonna put that on the side. And here is an example of like how that might look. These are of course not elementary textbooks. They're my dad's old college books. So it went by surface area, not thickness. So that's like a science book, that's a math book, and that's like a history book. And it does not matter what those books actually are. So with that pattern underway, okay, I continue the same thing into junior high as I got to 6th grade. Only it was a locker. That would be like the bottom of my locker, those 3 books. And on top of that, I might temporarily store, and I never wanted a backpack. This is another thing. I never could stand a backpack, ironically, as much as I wanted to be a boy. I wanted like a satchel or a briefcase of sort. My mom had something against them, and I also thought they would tear up my notebooks. And it was hard enough to keep those pristine. So I'd have maybe temporarily my book bag on top of my big textbooks. And if there was a hook, let's say on the side of my locker, I might put a coat or a jacket in the winter. And then I always brought it home every single day. I never said, oh, I forgot my jacket. So, the same thing in PE. The older I got, the more I was obsessed with my PE locker always staying neat at the end of the day. So I'd have like my tennis shoes, and I would fold my gym suit even if it made me late. I would fold my shorts just like when I do laundry, and I would fold that t-shirt that belonged to the school like as if my mom had just washed it. And I always threw it in the wash on laundry day at the school. I always remembered that. And if I had maybe one or two other items, like a hairbrush and some deodorant, I lay them right on top. So, by the time that I graduated high school, it never once occurred to me that I could do any of this in a sloppy way. Even my car, I tried to keep it looking like a showroom car, plus maybe a can of baby wipes in the console, and maybe a coat and an umbrella on the back seat or something like that. Some minor things that stayed in there at all times because they were useful. It wasn't a garbage can on wheels. Okay, but then my sister comes along, and she couldn't possibly care less what order her books were in. And then she'd have trash everywhere, little wads of paper. She'd have maybe an open bottle of glue squirting out. And none of it really mattered. It could be a mess, and she didn't care. And so, a few times, I would come in and I would like straighten up her desk. As a much older sister, go and see her at school. It's the weirdest thing. They've probably never seen anything like that. A sister coming to straighten a younger sibling's desk. Probably none of those teachers had ever seen that. I mean, there were a few kids, maybe a very small number, that were neat like I had been. And, but they were definitely the exception, just like I had been. And they were always girls. But what made me really mad was like her justification. I would talk to her, about she needs to do that on her own and stop trashing her desk. It's just a small version of her locker in junior high and high school, and now her truck. It's like a dump truck on wheels. It's like a dumpster on 4 wheels. It's just absolutely filthy, just like her house. And I just never understood how it could get so disgusting. Like how could one person have so much trash in their desk? And her justification, oh, you should see those other kids' desk. And my response was like, I don't give a crap about those other kids. And I hated it when she would like compare herself to boys. John Doe has a messy desk. I'm like, well, he's a boy. He's going to marry some unfortunate woman that's going to have to clean up behind him for the rest of their marriage. You were not born a male. And she was actually supposed to be more feminine than I was. Having to have long hair, and you know what I'm saying? Like, people thought she was a prettier, more feminine girl than I ever was. But yet, when it came to cleanliness, which I think is the most important area to be feminine, I think it's much better for a woman to have short hair and be masculine in that way than to be a pig. You know what I'm saying? To smell bad is a lot worse than to look more like a guy. A guy without testosterone. Because that's actually pretty cute. In fact, that's actually very cute. A guy without testosterone. It just really made me mad. And I'm already making almost a 20-minute video about that. But it's like her justification for it was always like, well, if there are other people out there doing it worse than me, then it doesn't matter. Or if she wasn't being graded on it, then it didn't matter. And it's just, it's just infuriating, to have a sibling that thinks like that. It's just a perfect example of how DNA doesn't mean anything. You know, I mean, it doesn't get more related than sisters or brothers. I mean, there are no closer relatives. You share the same two parents, but yet we couldn't have been more different. And so when you have a child, I mean, there is no guarantee. I mean, they have, half of their DNA that isn't yours. So there's no guarantee that they will be anything like you. Because I mean, you could have twins that are nothing alike. So, it just really made me mad because I was like, I just felt like it's like she was deliberately trying to. I don't even know. It's almost like she did it on purpose. She wanted to make us mad by being as sloppy and disgusting as she could get away with being. And then when she went away to college, it got even worse. It was like a whole new level of disgusting. When mom wasn't even there to help clean out her backpack, which she insisted on having, she had to be like the other kids, couldn't do anything better than everybody. And as I stated in my last video, this pooping in her panties, what was very curious about it to me, like a lot of kids who have encaprices, as it's called, though they're usually boys, it would almost always happen at home. And it's like, and that's what makes me think that it's often more intentional than people want to acknowledge, than parents in particular, want to acknowledge. And it's like, it was almost like she was only pretending to have accidents. I don't believe they were true accidents, especially as she got older, because it would always conveniently happen when she was at home. She didn't do it at school. She didn't do it in the middle of Walmart. She didn't do it, at piano recitals. She didn't do it like when in the middle of our meal at a restaurant. She, to some extent, she had control over it, I think, because I don't recall any public accidents. I mean, unless she stayed in it all day at school, but in that case, I think somebody would have smelled her and sent her home. I really don't think it was as accidental in hindsight as she led us to believe. Because it always conveniently happened at home when the consequences were least severe. And it even curiously didn't happen but maybe one time when she had a friend over. Certainly wasn't happening at friends' houses, unless, her friend's parents dealt with it and didn't tell anybody, but I doubt that. But it was like in her mind, it didn't matter as long as the outside world didn't find out about it. And that's why I started telling her friends and, telling people, people thought I was, the bad guy or whatever for doing that. But it was like, I was tired of her thinking that as long as other people didn't know about it, it was like it didn't happen. It's like, she thought the only problem with doing that was mom and I finding out. And that's why she would hide these panties everywhere she could. And I don't even know. Maybe she got some kind of a thrill out of sabotaging herself, because she had so many pluses. It's like she, the girls didn't want to hang around her because my mom says they were jealous of her. She had such high grades and was so good in music, and she had so many opportunities that they didn't. And all the boys liked her, but she didn't get real serious about boys until college, and then it was a life of serial monogamy. What I mean by that is she could date a guy for 5 years, but then the minute she broke up with him, she was already hooked up with another guy. And why the boys like her is anybody's guess. And so, yeah, it's like I will never understand her. I will never understand her because it's like, she was under the impression that, if people didn't know about it, then it was all one and the same as if it didn't happen or didn't exist. It's like she had no internal sense of, I don't even know, like a record of things, an unofficial record of her life or anything like that. She didn't accept the fact that cleanliness is important, and especially for females. And it doesn't make any sense, because I'm the one, if anyone, that rejected femininity. It's like, supposedly she was the girly girl with all the long hair. And it's like, making everybody late. That's another thing I didn't do, was make people late. So before this video gets too long, I'll go ahead and post it.